Bridget, can they speak or are they
Yes. Well, I ask all the ladies to mute
okay?
upon entry, but they can absolutely unmute
Unmute.
themselves
Good.
and
Okay.
ask questions or communicate
Perfect.
within the chat.
Okay.
I will watch on Facebook. If anyone watching has a question, please feel free to drop it in the chat attached to the video over on Facebook. I'll be watching and I can get that over to Holly. And Holly McFarland is here today for Empower Hour to talk about the new resume and interviewing tips that you will want to take with you into 2021. As even if I think it's important if you're already employed to really just stay on top of
Mm,
updating that resume. Something I think we should do at the end of the year every year. I'm bad
yeah.
about it, but I'm so glad you're here today, Holly, to give us
Thank
these
you.
wonderful tips.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone. And what you're saying is absolutely right, Bridget. Our resume actually is a living document, so it's easier as you have different accomplishments or new things to add to the resume. It's good to add those as they happen because we often then will, if we wait too long, we'll forget
Yep.
about some things that could be key on our resume. So just a little bit about myself. I have my own consulting company, HSM Consultants. For 14 years, I was served as Director of Career Services for Franklin University. And so I've just took a retirement about a year ago and now do some career coaching and retirement coaching on the non-financial end with my own company. So anyway, I'm happy to be here. I think that if you haven't looked for a job, within the last 5 years or so, that what we've seen is that the entire job search process is really very different. And therefore, the role of the resume is different as well. And so, what I think we used to consider, we used to think about the resume as being kind of our calling card or our door opener, that that has changed, and that our resume actually serves as a document to establish what you've done, not only just what you've done, but it also establishes who you are, what you want to be doing, and a little bit about your branding. So in this age, I think of email, of social media, and online communication, what we're doing is we're actually dealing with a shorter, with a tighter, kind of a laser focused communication. So we know that now we need to get our point across, and we need to do that in a quicker way. So that's just something to keep in mind as we kind of look at some of the changes. So I thought that the first thing we do is and I just want to spend a bit of time on the resume, just to highlight a few things to think about. And then we're going to get into more of the interviewing and some interviewing tips. I know that right now, with a lot of people, with the pandemic, people are out of work, are interviewing. The encouraging thing is that every day I see that more jobs are opening up. So that is a really good sign. And I think we're going to continue to see some movement and to see new jobs opening that might have been just kind of put on hold, especially during, the pandemic. So as we look at the resume, what you're looking at here these are the sections of the resume. And just a few things about each one of those sections I wanted to touch on. When you're, especially in the heading, when you want to include your name, but keep in mind that you don't want to waste space by making it too large. The resume, we know that recruiters spend about, I think, a total of about 5 to 7 seconds looking at a resume before making a decision on whether or not they're going to be reaching out to that person. So it is really important that you not waste any kind of space. And to know that that top portion of your resume is what I consider the prime real estate. That's where they're going to go and look first. So you want that top part of your resume to really to stand out, to kind of pop, so that they continue to read the resume. If something doesn't stand out to them there, many times they will not continue to read the resume. So just a couple other things on the heading. I see a lot of people putting their street address. That is not necessary on the resume now. What we do is we usually just have the name. We've got the city and state where you live. Your phone number, I would have only one phone number, and that being the phone number that you want these calls to come in on, and then your email address. And sometimes people will also put a shortened version of their LinkedIn profile as part of that heading. For emails, a lot of what we're seeing is that the AOL emails are a bit outdated right now. Other ones are Hotmail and Yahoo are actually rather outdated emails now as well. So I think what we're seeing the most of are the Gmail, but that's just what we're seeing right now. As far as the heading, I think another thing that I have noticed is that in your email address, make sure that it's professional. So you want to, if you're putting any numbers into that, you want to make them nonsensical. In other words, you don't want to put a number in that is for, like for myself, I would not make my email Holly 1950, or they're going to think immediately of my age, that, was that the year that I was born. So, and I see sometimes people try to be a little kind of cutesy with their emails, but in terms of a professional, if you're looking for a job, I try to keep that as professional as you can. Yeah, was there a question?
So, Holly, you shouldn't, maybe on the email, it shouldn't be like Beach Babe 375, right?
Good thinking. Yes,
not on
absolutely.
the resume.
Exactly right. So that's that part of the resume. The most important part, I cannot stress enough, is the qualification summary. That is the first place that the recruiter, that whoever is reading your resume, they are going to look at that first. If you still have an objective statement on your resume, take that off. That is very dated. We no longer are using objective statements. And part of the reason is because they became rather self-serving, because the objective statement kind of talked about what you want. And when it's actually about what is it that the company is looking for, what is it that they want. So we have replaced that objective statement with the qualification summary. And it's just as the name applies. It's a summary of your key qualifications. And again, it's very similar if you have written any research papers in school and you had an executive summary, it serves the same thing. And it is where you're writing, you're putting things in there. Some of the summary items could be your professional title section. It could be a paragraph. I've seen people do it in a paragraph overview of some of your accomplishments, and then including maybe some bullets, some taglines of highlights of either your education or your experience, but anything most relevant to who you are now and where it is that you want to go. Many people will also then, right underneath that, they'll either include it as part of that summary, or they'll come down and they'll also include a skills section where they kind of bullet out some of what their key skills are. Remember that it is the tag words, it is some of the language for whatever job you're looking for, because this will also help as you're applying for a job, and those key words some need to be on your resume in order for it to make it over to the recruiters for them to look at it. So making sure as you're reading through a job description that you're including within your resume some of those key words that they're using on the job description. I would really encourage you to go out to Google qualification summaries to kind of look at what other people, how they have written theirs, what kind of format that they've been using as well. There's a lot of different variations, but as I said, it's the most important piece because something has to pop there in order for the recruiter to continue to read the resume. Then we go down to accomplishments. And for many of you, this might be something new. In the past, our resumes were very much written around the job responsibilities, the job duties that we were doing. And that's with our experience as well. And so what though we are seeing now is that the employers are interested in seeing what our accomplishments have been. Where is it that we've gone above and beyond what that basic job requirements were? So this is the part of the resume where you can really, it's showing the employer how you can add value. It's kind of a show and tell. And so you want to show how you have done something in the past and where you have gone beyond the basic job description. And this can be done in a lot of different ways. I've seen on the resume where somebody will have a section that's accomplishments section, and they bullet those major, most relevant accomplishments that they've had. And some people will have it as part of the experience. So they'll be writing a little bit about what their job duties were, and then they come down and in bullets, they might have some accomplishment statements. So if this is new to you, I would also encourage you to Google accomplishment statements, and you'll see a lot of different resources out there that will help you write those statements. The key thing is that you're always wanting to write about, here's what I've done and here's what the results were, because that's what the employer is looking for. What were the results? You know, how did that benefit the organization that you were working for. And then our experience, again, we're putting down who the employer is, we're putting the state, the city and state of that employer, and we're putting the years that we worked there. We really have gone from where we used to put the months that we worked, and those we've really kind of taken off the resume, and we're including just the years for that. And then we have your education. That's where you include your degree granting institutions. This is also an area where you might put certifications, any kind of certifications that you've had. But we do not include usually high school on the education. And just remember that, you know, this is an area, if you're going to put some of the training or some of the certifications, to be kind of strategic in painting the picture of who you are and those things that would be most relevant to the positions that you're actually looking for. And then the last section is what I call kind of a value added. This is a good place to include any professional organizations that you belong to and to list those. If you don't belong to an organization, most fields will have a number of those, and I encourage you to look at joining those, because for an employer, they are looking at this as kind of your, how are you keeping up to date with the industry? And they want to see that you're an ongoing learner. And so by joining and being active with some professional organizations is a great way to demonstrate that. Other things that you could add there would be if you've received any kind of awards throughout your career, and, you know, putting that, but just going back and thinking, what are those type of things, maybe even some volunteer experience, just making sure that that it's going to add value to the resume, because again, all of everything on your resume is like we said, laser focused. So we don't want to waste any space. One question I get quite a bit is, how long should the resume be? I have people who feel that they've been told one page only. And for most people who have, you know, at least 5-10 years of experience, you know, they're going to have a 2-page resume. So that I encourage you to try to keep it at 2. I've heard some recruiters say they just don't want to read anything beyond 2 pages. But don't be afraid to go to a 2-page resume if you've got that, you know, if you have that experience. So let me stop here for a minute and see what kind of questions that you have for me before we go on to talking a little bit about interviewing. You can go ahead and just unmute yourself if you want, or put your questions in the chat, and Bridget will gather those.
Hey Siri, look.
Okay, any questions? Bridget, did you get any?
I don't have any on my end. Oh, here's one. Jerry has asked, she would like to know more about the accomplishment section of the resume.
Okay. Yeah, that, again, like I said, I see that written a couple of ways. Let me And actually, I think what I will do as well, I'm going to grab a couple things here. But I have, I've got a couple of documents that can help put those together. So if you could put your email address into the chat box, I will get those to Bridget and we can send those out to you on how to kind of develop and write those statements. But you're always starting those off with a good action word. And then, what the what it was that you did and what the results were. So I'll send more information on that. Okay, very good.
There's another question, Holly. If you don't have much relevant education, is it okay to include your high school education?
Yeah, you should not include that on the resume. It's better to, if you don't have anything for that section, it's better just not to include that section on the resume. But if you have where you've taken any kind of certification or any trainings, then you could actually title that as training. Or professional development, that you could list some things under there. But we pretty much stay clear of putting high school on the resume.
And Holly, I have a question. If you don't maybe have the documentation, let's say you were certified in something, an area, like you became a facilitator, or in my case, I worked for Columbus City Schools and I became a parapro, which is the equivalency of an early childhood degree. But what if you don't have that document saying, hey, this is true? Is that something you might want to put on the resume or just leave it off?
Oh, you mean because you don't have an, what do you mean by a document? If you've gone.
So if I've been certified, I'll just use CPR. Let's say I've been certified in CPR, but I don't have my card, but I know I'm certified.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something you would want to put on your resume, or should you leave it off?
Sure, I would definitely put that on there if you have it and it's something that is relevant to the kinds of positions you're looking for. Yeah,
absolutely.
You want to put that. Great. Yeah. Remember that the resume too, oftentimes what we'll do is our resume is not the application. And that's where I feel like people feel as though they have to put all the months in, all of that. That's why we really use the years. And most of the time we have to do the application if we get, as we go along in the interviewing process. So resume doesn't have to have all of those things on it. The same is true when you're writing out your experience. You don't need to put every job duty, every responsibility you had on the job. You want it to really highlight those main pieces and really looking at the accomplishments more of, where you excelled and what the results were. Anytime you can put a number or a percentage on those results, it makes it that much more powerful. Now, I know in a lot of jobs, we don't have those numbers, but if you do have them, that's a great thing to include onto the resume as part of what your results were. Yeah, great, good questions. And again, I will send out some more information, both. I'll send it to you, more information on both the qualification summary and on the accomplishments piece, because those are the two pieces that have really changed on the resume in the last number of years. and are really the most important, I think, pieces on the resume. So this will give you some examples of what each of those looks like and a little bit about how to put them together then. So I hope you'll find that helpful.
I'm losing.
There's another question, Holly,
Yeah.
before we move
Sure.
forward.
Okay.
And it's about the value added section.
Mhm.
I no longer belong to professional organizations, but I keep up with the industry. But by reading and studying, how can I make this relevant to employers?
Yeah, exactly. It's so that's a good point. Now, remember, if there are also within LinkedIn, there's a lot of groups that you can join, and then you can include those on your resume. They don't cost anything on LinkedIn, but for most of those, you will, there's something for everyone on there. So I encourage you on LinkedIn to kind of look through what are the groups there and what are those that you could join there, because that also then shows up on your LinkedIn profile. And we know that employers usually will pull up your they've got your resume. One of the first places they go then is directly to LinkedIn. And so you want to make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date as well, and that it's consistent with what your resume is. But again, those organizations you can list right on LinkedIn as well.
So if you join the group from LinkedIn, do you have to specify, like, so say I join like a Chase group or something like that for, Chase Bank, and, I'll say, oh, I'm a part of the Chase group. Do I have to specify I'm part of the Chase group through LinkedIn, or just say like the Chase group?
Well, you'll see when you go in. So if you put in, for example, if I was in the HR field, I could join SHRM, which is the National HR Association. It also has a LinkedIn group. You don't necessarily have to belong to the, you could belong to the chapter group of Morocco here in if it was Columbus, but there's usually will be somebody who is in charge of that group and these groups all vary a little bit, but there are a lot of them that it doesn't mean that I joined some of the HR groups to kind of keep up to date with that, but I'm not in the HR field, but I still was admitted and was, into that group. So I would, those things that are of interest to you, I would take a look at those groups. The other thing that's nice about the professional organizations is that a lot of them have their own job boards. So there may be jobs that they have posted on their site that might not even be out there. They might not have even been posted with Indeed or some of the job boards. Or you might see them before they, get to other, other job sites. So that many times they will put them right on their, on that industry website first, looking to see if they can find people there. Okay, was there anything else?
A LinkedIn question, Holly.
Yeah, okay.
I noticed sometimes on my LinkedIn, it will say like DSW looked at your page or some other company, but not necessarily a person. What does that mean?
Well, that could mean then, you mean so a company is, so that could be that a recruiter is out there. Remember that what I hear from recruiters are that they spend 80% of their day looking on LinkedIn, looking for people. So you might say, well, how do they know?
Wow.
How do they know I'm even looking? Maybe I'm not even looking.
Mhm.
Well, they're looking for the best people they can find. And if you're not interested, if they reach out to you about a position and you're not interested, they're just out there looking for the best people that they think would be a good match. Another thing is many times those recruiters will, if you're not interested in the position, many times they'll ask you, do you know of someone who this might be a good fit for, or that that might be interested in it? Because we know that the people that we associate with many times might be somebody who that would be a good fit for them as well. So yeah, they spend, like I said, they spend the majority of their day, looking for people. That's why your LinkedIn profile, especially having those tag words, those key words, if you are in a job search, you want those recruiters to find you. And so like right underneath your profile picture is where you're kind of plugging in those tag words of the different positions that you might be looking for. Yeah. Again, as we look at conducting your job search, I'm always interested to hear how people are going about the job search. So let me ask you, and if you could just write into the chat or, unmute yourself. I hear people saying that their job search is through the job boards. It's through some people, it's through the networking. Some people, it's LinkedIn. But how are you kind of going about your job search?
I like to leave my Indeed and Career Builder and those types of accounts. I try to make sure they're updated, and I kind of just leave them open. And then also LinkedIn, make sure that's up to date, and just kind of leave them open and just look and see who comes to me instead of me actively searching, because I already have a position.
Okay.
So I'm just kind of looking for like a supplemental, like on the side type situation. So if something comes, and of course, I'll be happy about it, but I'm not actively like, out there looking. But Google and Indeed are definitely number one when it comes to actively looking for me.
Yeah, good. Very good. That's excellent. I cannot say enough too about networking. What we have found is that somebody who is in job search, who wants to land a job as fast as they can, that all of these are good things, but to do a little bit of everything. Make sure that in your job search that it isn't just on the job boards, because the percentage of people that find a job on a job board, if that is the only thing that they have been doing, it's a pretty low percentage. We know that the majority of people still are going to find their job networking. And so that's where, I encourage people to, in their job search, to identify some of the companies that you think that you would be interested in working for, and going about it, then looking to see what kind of jobs do they have available. And anytime you can make connections, and LinkedIn is the perfect place to do that. And anytime you can get your resume in the hands of someone, you're going to be much more likely to land an interview. So let me give you an example. So say I saw a job on Cardinal Health's website that I was very interested in, felt that this would be a good fit. I qualify for this job. I would encourage people, if I didn't know anyone at Cardinal, I would go into LinkedIn to see who within my contact of people, my network of people, where is there someone who knows somebody at Cardinal Health? And it will give me the name of who that person is. So then what I can do is reach out to my network person and say, shoot them an email and say, I saw this job on Cardinal that I think I would love to have an opportunity to interview for it. I'm getting ready to apply for it. I don't know anyone. I noticed that you are connected with Joe Smith, who works there. And I'm wondering if you could, introduce us. And if I could even do maybe an informational interview, I would love to do with that person. And really, that is what LinkedIn is all about. It is a networking tool. And so most people will do whatever they can to help other people. And people are more than happy to do that, especially right now with everything and so many people being out of work. People are willing to do whatever they can do to help their fellow, whether it was somebody they worked with at some point, friends, family, that you'll be surprised at how much they're willing to do. And LinkedIn even makes it very easy because they've got a lot of forms, a lot of email forms that people can just use those to send to the contact. So they've done a lot of that work for the person. So take a look at everything, all the resources that are available through LinkedIn. And so the other way is look for a recruiter. If I was going for a job for Cardinal, I know I need to apply for the job through their website or wherever it was that I found it. But I would also then go to LinkedIn and see who is a recruiter at Cardinal Health. And I would, at the same time, as soon as I did my online application and sent my resume, I would also reach out to that recruiter and say, I just applied for, give them the name of the position, all that information, what date you applied for it. But I also wanted to send my resume to you. And I would love to have an opportunity to talk with you about this position. And recruiters, they love to get these kind of, and then attach your resume to that. If they're a recruiter in another area of Cardinal Health, if they're impressed with the resume, many times then they will just go ahead and hand it off to the recruiter that is, does the recruiting in that area for the organization. So anytime though that you can get your resume and then that your resume is in the hands of somebody, then it just makes it that much more likely that you will be called on that. And the best is then if somebody can even say, something, a recommendation or, for you as well. That is, fabulous when that can help happen as well. Any other questions on that? I'd also encourage people to get recommendations on LinkedIn, going back to about, 1 to 3 years, and having at least 3 recommendations. Recruiters are always looking at that. Another area that they're looking for on LinkedIn is the skill sets. So they have a predetermined, number of skills. And so I would go through and I would pick those skills that you have, you know, from all the different jobs or all the different experience that you've had. Because those are the kind of things too that will kind of do the ping for a recruiter that will, you know, get them to your profile. Okay. So I wanted to spend the last bit of time that we have talking a little bit about interviews and the things that really can make a difference in when I think about a really successful interview. Probably the top thing is being able in an interview to communicate the value that you feel you would bring that organization. So, you know, building a case that you can produce significant bottom line results, or in other words, that you can really get the job done and you can get the job done well. So thinking about yourself and what is it about you that makes you different than all the other job candidates out there? You know, looking at the experience that you have, or maybe any trainings or any education that you had, but what is it about you that would really bring that company value? So that is one piece of it. A second piece for a really successful interview is, again, building a case that you have the same values or that you have the same cultural characteristics that particular company adheres to. So this is where the research comes in. Making sure that if you are applying for a job or you're getting ready for an interview, that you have done the research, that you've gone out onto their company website. It's very easy on websites to, usually on the About Us, will give information about what that company's core values are. So, and looking to see, are those core values, are those in line with what your top values are? And so this is where all of the research, you know, there are still plenty of people out there who do not do the research. And that is something that can differentiate you from all the other job candidates out there. If you have done that research, that you understand the company, you know what they do, if you know who their competitors are. Again, a lot of that research can be done on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, in their news part of companies, can kind of tell you who's coming and going at the companies. So if you're not, I'll hear people say, well, what if I don't get asked the question, you know, to show that I know what their values are? And my response to that is, we're almost always at the end of an interview asked, what questions do you have for me? And so if you haven't been able to, you know, to plug in that information, that's a good time to do it, where you can say, you know, I was doing my research and I found that whatever that is, and then ask some kind of question around it, just some kind of question that would be associated with it. So that way you're able to show that, you know, that you have done that research. So that is a key piece. And then the last piece is what I call this likability factor. And there's not a whole lot that we can do with that. We just know that certain times when we interview with people, sometimes it is so easy. And it's like, oh, you know, other times we interview with people and it's like, oh my gosh, that was difficult. A lot of times that is because maybe our personalities are different. Maybe our communication styles are different. So what we can do about that, though, is to, if your communication style is a little bit different than theirs, anytime you can kind of flex what your style is with what theirs is, it should help that piece. The other key thing is that when you're getting ready for the interview, when you've been called and set the interview up, be sure to ask, who am I going to be interviewing with? And if they give you the names of those people, go on to LinkedIn and do a little, research so that you understand a little bit of the background of the people that you're interviewing with. Maybe you'll find that you have something in common. Maybe you, years ago, belong to the same, same organization as this person. Anytime we can find something where we have something in common, it can help that likability factor that ordinarily, we are who we are. So there's not a whole lot that you can do about that. So these probably, I'd say, are really the key items. And then when I think about, and what I would hear from employers, I was always asking, what is it that you're looking for in an interview? And the answer that employers would say to me time and time again was, first of all, yes. Do they have the qualifications? Can they do the job? Yes, that is important. Motivations. Do they want the job? I cannot say enough about that, because that's what I would hear employers say, that they might have a job candidate who has all the skill sets they're looking for, has all the experience that they're looking for, but they didn't see the motivation. What is it why is it that person wants to work for our organization and our organization only? And I would hear more and more employers say that they would keep jobs open, that yes, there were people who had all the skills, everything they were looking for, but they just didn't see that motivation piece. And so they were not willing to give an offer. And I've heard employers say they would rather take someone who might not have everything that they're looking for in terms of skills, but if they have that motivation that they really want to work for this organization, then they can always train them on new skills. That motivation piece, that's not something that we can train people on. So that's something to really keep in mind when you're interviewing. And that's where doing the homework, really taking the extra time to learn all you can about the employer, and being able in an interview to talk about what is it that makes you the best candidate for that job. So part of it is, why do you want to work for them? And really bringing that motivation into it. And then again, the chemistry was the other piece. Would you fit with that team? Is that going to be a good fit? Because we know that employers, it's got to be a good fit for you. It needs to be a good fit for them. So what I say on that is just, do your research. That can make all the difference in the world. I'm going to plug one other thing that I would encourage you to go out, take a look at. I am hearing people having huge success with this. If you Google 30, 60, 90-day plans, or for whatever the position is you're looking for. So if you Googled 30, 60, 90 interview plan for accountant, it will bring up a lot of different ideas of some of the things that people would do the first 90 days on the job. And I am hearing people have a lot of success where you wouldn't use it on your first interview, but for the second interview or one of the final interviews, they will submit this document and to whoever it is that they're interviewing with. And there's a lot of different templates out there you'll see, but you can do it as easy as just on the top. It's a one-page document where you would have at the top of it 30, 60, 90-day plan, come down, say 30 days, have a few bullets, 60 days, a few bullets, and 90 days. And this is where you would just very high level of some of the things you think that you would do the first 30 days on the job. Some of the things you think you might do the first, 60 days. So it's kind of capturing what your thoughts are on what you would do that first 3 months on the job. And again, like I said, you'll see a lot of, if you Google that for whatever the position is, you'll see a lot of different ideas. You'll also see it right within the job description. So as you're reading the job description and they're talking about the different things that this job is going to involve, that's where you can plug, you can plug some of those things in. But I have heard more people say that when they got a job and they said, what was it? Why was I chosen? That many employers were saying, nobody came with this, plan that you put out. So I think it really plays to the motivation. Somebody who is willing to kind of put this together and really think through what they're, again, very high level of what your first 90 days on the job would look like can make you, that can be a huge differentiator between you and all of the other job candidates. It's also a great thing that if you don't have all of the experience that maybe one of the other job candidates has, that by putting down, your ideas on that, that can be huge. Yeah. So any questions? Any questions on that?
We have a couple of
We got-
questions in the
okay,
chat.
Caleb, then keep working. But Caleb, I think you have, what did I just say? You have-
One question, do you ask someone for the recommendations?
Yeah, sure. It would be just like your references. And usually a lot of times it's whoever your, references are going to be, asking them, if they would be a reference, and then also asking, would you mind doing a, on LinkedIn? Yeah.
And another question, can I know tips on shift career experience? Raja, I don't know if you want to chime in, if you're still with us.
Can I ask
Raja?
a question?
Go ahead, Teresa, I'm sorry. Go,
That's
please,
okay.
go ahead.
I was filling out an application online today. And so one of the things that I noticed inside the online application, it was asking in a field that had achievement. I had uploaded my resume through LinkedIn. And so in continuing to fill out the application online, there was a section in there that had achievement. So what does that really mean?
That would be your accomplishments. That's exactly the same as the accomplishments. So this document that we send you will help you put those together. And like I said, that is one of the shifts on the, that they're really interested in is where, what achievements have you had? You know, other than just, you know, the bare minimum
All
of a
right.
job is your job
1 minute.
duties.
Yes,
They
Diana.
want to know where it is
Yep.
that you've gone beyond that. So what have your achievements
Oh,
What is
been?
it, Diana?
boy.
Oh, okay, so that would be at each job that I would have. So
You
if I had
better
3
get it
jobs,
together. Do you
I would
understand?
list something of achievement in there. So I don't need to put anything added from my resume in that field. It would just be something that was an achievement at each job. Right.
Yeah,
Get out of my shirt.
yeah.
About like 2.
Yeah, that's a good question. That would be the same thing as your accomplishments. And if you want, you can just Google accomplishment
2:05.
statements. So yeah, so it could do that. Any other questions? I
Turn your
think the,
cameras on if you're off.
We do have another
If they're
one
off.
from
Okay.
Jill. Very good ideas to differentiate myself, but what if I don't get asked to a second
Turn your
interview?
cameras on.
Could I do something like this for a first interview? And Jill, was that
So-
with the 30, 60, 90-day plan? Is that what you're speaking of? I think you're on mute. Okay, I got you. Yep. Would that work, Holly, as well?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
you could do something. I've seen people do that too. Yeah. Yeah. It's been, you know, I have heard and I'm hearing every day more and more people say, wow, I had such success with that. Again, it plays into this value piece. What is the value that you would bring that organization? And so I think that, you know, and just indicating, you know, this is just some of my thoughts. And I just wanted to share those with you of when I think about this job, some of the things that I think that, you know, some of the things that I think that I would be, you know, that I would be thinking about. Remember those key items too, listening. Employers always want to hear, you know, so you're coming into the job, you are listening, you are building new relationships. So for a lot of the positions, and like I said, when you Google that, you will see so many different ideas and just key in whatever the job title is along with the 30, 60, 90, and you'll see a whole lot of different ideas on that. Yeah. Don't forget too about your strengths. Let me end with a couple questions that I think are important, and there again, where you can Google. The question, tell me about yourself. I think it's a critical question because it's almost always the first question that we're asked in an interview. So spend time putting that answer together. Sometimes we've known of it as our elevator speech, our 30-second, very brief answer. But I think it's important because it is the first question. So it kind of sets the whole groundwork as you're going forward in the interview. And it can really, if you really nail that answer, I think, first of all, it gives you confidence. You feel good. It's like, okay, we're on our way now. And I've heard more people who've said, oh my gosh, I blew it. And then they couldn't get it out of their head for the rest of the interview. So it does set the tone for the rest of the interview. So it's worth spending a little bit of time crafting what is included on there. Again, you can just Google, you know, tell me about yourself interview question, and it will give you ideas of how to put that together. That, and then also think about your strengths. What are your strengths? If you, I encourage people to take the Strength Finder assessment. If you went to Amazon it's just a small book, it's called Strength Finders 2.0. And it has a code in it. So you would go online, take the assessment, and it will give you what your top 5 strengths are. I like it because it gives some really fresh language to strengths. And I like it because so many employers are using it within their companies because they want their people to be in roles where they're using their top strengths. So I think that by taking that, it'll give you some ideas of what your top strengths are. And if I was asked that question, I would say, you know, I took the Strength Finder assessment and my top strengths were, and I list a couple of those. I would really talk about these strengths or one or two of the strengths that really, when you think about the position that you're going for, which strength would really help you out in that role and would really benefit the employer. So, and again, this could be kind of, this is what makes you different than all the other job candidates. So really thinking about the value that you would bring. And a lot of times that value that we would bring is, you know, some of our top strengths, and how by using those in the past, give an example of when you used that strength and what were the results of it. You know, how did that benefit the employer? Yeah, that can be very powerful. And that's all around kind of the branding. Again, the branding of yourself. My last thing would be, don't forget that you have a lot of transferable skills. If you are reading a job description and it has, you know, telling you, you know, the different skills they're looking for or the experience they're looking for, they are writing those for the absolute ideal person. So I encourage you, even if you don't have all of those, don't let that stop you from, you know, from going for that position. Because again, you've got a lot of transferable skills. Maybe you have not worked in that industry. You're looking to go a totally different way, but you've got skills. You still have those skill sets. You've just used them differently. So coming up with some really powerful accomplishment stories of how you've used that skill in the past and what the results were. And to really go for those jobs. You know, women are the worst at that. I hear women time and time again say, you know, well, I was going to go for that job, but there was one thing they listed and I don't have that. A man would not hesitate in a minute, you know, to reach out and to go for that. So I don't know, you know, but it is just women. We feel as though as we read that we've got to have everything they're asking for. But remember, for the most part, those have been written with everything they can imagine, you know, which would be great for them to have. But that doesn't mean they're not going to interview people who have less than, you know, what those are. So don't let that stop you. Yeah.
Holly, I have a question. And Jill is asking, what do you think about including your top five strengths in your cover letter?
Yeah, absolutely. I would do that. Also, I see many people including it on their resume. If you take the Strength Finders 2.0 and you've got your 5 strengths, putting those right on the resume, right underneath that qualification summary. And there are so many companies that are so familiar with it that when they see those strengths, yeah, absolutely. Any other questions as we
Lots of thank yous, Holly. I know we're a
Okay.
little bit over.
That's fine.
I just want to ask, can I reach out? Can you be my personal mentor?
You know, the other thing is, and I encourage all of you. So Bridget's going to share my email. If you are going for a job, you don't have a contact in that company, and if you within LinkedIn didn't see anyone within your group, shoot me an email and let me see if I have a contact at that company. And I would be happy to give you that contact information. And then please feel free to use, to use my name in it if you're reaching out to that person. It can make all the difference in the world by somebody actually getting the resume right, and where somebody has it in their hands. So, I am happy to do that for any of you. Any questions that, we didn't have enough time to go into everything. Any questions that you might have, just send me an email and I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
So thoughtful, Holly. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, we are 15 minutes beyond our time. Do any of you ladies have any other questions for Holly? If you're here live, watching on Facebook.
Do you will you be sending Holly's email through the invitation?
Here,
Brittany,
let me just give it to you. My email then is Holly, HOLLY .McFarland, McFarland 5 @gmail.com.
There's so many signs and sign language.
And Holly, I have dropped that information right here in the chat for the ladies.
Yep, just shoot me an email. I'll send you those different documents that I was talking about too. So, yeah. And the Strength Finder book is, like I said, it's by Tom Rath, and it's Strength Finder 2.0. And again, I think on Amazon, the book is like maybe $14. It's well worth. It's got such good, fresh language so that you're not answering it like everybody else is.
can we add you on LinkedIn?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Holly,
Okay.
I did take the Strength Finders, that assessment test, and I was able to find out 5 of my strengths. I actually took it through an interpersonal skills test, class. And we also did the KIRC behavior testing also. And so I found where that actually did help me, like you were saying. And I'm finding where like a lot of the employers are asking, even if you apply for jobs and stuff, where they're asking questions and things like that.
Yeah. And then the ones really to talk about then in the interview are looking at those strengths, that which one of those would, when you read the job description and what their need is, what is their specific need, and then which strength of yours really would help them out, and that's, I think Strength Finder too, that helps you kind of brand yourself. Those things that you're, that are your strengths become kind of the brand of who you are, the things that interest you, and, the way you kind of go about, working. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. And I look forward to hearing from you guys then. Yeah.
Thank you, Holly, for your time. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. I have dropped Holly's email address and her LinkedIn connect information all in the chat. So it's there for you. Please add Holly, and please feel free to reach out to her for all this wonderful information. You ladies are beyond welcome. Again, I will had a medical emergency, so I will resend the invite for our end-year celebrations following this meeting today. Just thank you so much for your time. Everyone have a beautiful weekend. And if I don't see you before the holidays, everyone have a beautiful holiday.
You too. Thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
you're so welcome. Thank you, Holly, again.
Thank you.
Thank you, beauties. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.